or good afternoon. My name is Deborah Herky, and I am a holistic cancer coach, and I am also a functional nutrition lifestyle practitioner. And I am also going to be part of the discussion. So,
Yeah, and I just want to mention and add, we all cancer survivors here at this roundtable discussion. And it's been our journey. We went through cancer, we beat cancer, we're still here, many, many years after. So, and we've been doing a lot of research, and today's topic is gonna be about red meat. Is it really carcinogenic, or because we get that question asked a lot, and we decided to break it down today.
This one's going to be
Okay.
good and juicy,
Right, right.
unintended.
That is so true. Yes. So if any listeners have any questions, please put them on the Facebook chat, or you can join us here on Zoom call and put it in the chat, or hop on the discussion to ask questions.
just made me really hungry. That's all.
Right, me too. Okay, what are we gonna start with? Annette, do you want to start with like asking questions, or are we just gonna talk about
Well, I think a good one would be, I think as coaches, we often get the question of, is meat okay to eat? In this realm, it's tend to seen as people move towards plant-based. And which one is actually the benefit, which one is more beneficial? Or is there really any diet that's specifically beneficial for your situation if you're going through cancer or have been through cancer? So that's one thing that comes up quite a bit, is being able to distinguish, if meat is something that is safe and good for you to eat, or if it's not, if it's something that you should avoid. So I think providing clarity on that piece would be really big. So what are
Right.
your thoughts on that, Maya and Deb? What do you think about meat and cancer when you're going through cancer and post-cancer?
Okay. Well, here's the thing. If you hear something per se, you have cancer, you gotta follow plant-based. Or if your doctor or naturopathic doctor or functional medicine doctor telling you, oh, I would like you to go on plant-based diet, or I would like you to implement ketogenic diet, your first question has to be, okay, why? Break it down for me. I need to know why. What are you coming this from? I need to know that. And can you please provide sources so I can learn about it? So that would be my recommendation, because by just reading the topics here and there or on PubMed, that you gotta go with plant-based, or you have to avoid red meat, or you gotta go with ketogenic diet. It's proved that you have to read it through, see where the study is coming from, who's funding the study, and what that study included in. Did it included just the diet itself? How long was it studied for? Was it a couple of months? Was it a couple of years? Was it 20 years? That kind of take that link, that particular like diet would link to something. So how long was that studied for? And did it involve like epigenetics, your lifestyle, other aspects, other sources like alcohol consumption, like other sources, like what exactly combined together to say that out of everything, like red meat or plant-based had improved people's health. So that's the way that I want to go to like kind of helping people to understand, instead of just listening to per se whatever whoever speaks on social media, or you get this article here and there. Dive into that study, learn about it, where it was done. Was it done on mice? Was it done on humans? Because studies on mice are not accurate for humans. It might be theories and opinions, because mice metabolic is different from humans metabolism. It's faster than human metabolism is. So if mice would develop cancer, how come it stopped recording? Cool. Okay, I can continue now. So because humans metabolism is slower than the mice metabolism. So if mice would develop cancer within a year or 2 years over something, the human probably would reach that in a decade or so. So again, or if the, you know, or vice versa. So we have to consider many things before we jump into the conclusion, okay, red meat is carcinogenic and I cannot consume that, or plant-based the way to go.
Exactly. Well, we have a
Right.
really good, we broke down a couple of studies that we were just reviewing. And one of them we were reading through, and the title is actually a little misleading. It says the association of meat consumption with the risk of gastrointestinal cancers. Well, meat is combined with red meat, regular red meat, whole, whole food is combined with processed meats in this study. So really, those two things should actually be separated because they do two totally different things, and they do two totally different things for the body. So this is just a really good example of what we were mentioning with being able to really know what you're reading, knowing exactly where it's coming from, and being able to dissect the research to be able to make sure that you're getting the correct information. Because this one was just a little bit misleading. It is in the chat if anybody's on Zoom that wants to check it out. And it did come from a China study from a cancer center, but again, they did not separate those two different types of meats, which are vitally important because processed meat, as we all know, is full of carcinogenic items.
Right.
I mean, it's bad for you. I consider it a food item, and I don't even really consider it food. Do you guys really consider processed like
No,
meat as a food?
no.
No,
Food,
no.
food is something that I would consider that been given to us from the beginning of times. You know, it's been there, it's been here around us all the time. That's what I would consider food. Anything man-made, I don't consider food, personally. Yeah. Deputy, would you like to add anything to that?
I was going to speak to the article. I had put an article into the chat, and I was going to talk a little bit about that. But that was the comprehensive review of red meat consumption and the risk of cancer.
Mhm.
And do you want me to talk about that study right now, or to?
Sure.
I'll just
Yeah.
add.
Yeah.
I'll add to that then. So it kind of talks a little bit about what we were, what we had, researched and stuff. I think one of the important things to remember is that really do your own due diligence, do your own research, and really look to see where that research came from, where it was done, and when it was done. I think that's important. As we were, or as I was even reading this article, again, it's in the chat if you're interested in taking a look at it. As by a number, put together by a number of studies that were gathered together by, I'm saying I'm a lot here, sorry about that. Well, basically the abstract on it is red and processed meat consumption rates are increasing in the United States. And this review, they present the current evidence that links red meat consumption and cancer development. And a literature search was conducted in PubMed and Google Scholar databases to review red meat consumption and its association with breast cancer and gastrointestinal cancers. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. A literature search was conducted in PubMed and Google Scholar databases to review red meat consumption and its association with breast cancer and gastrointestinal cancer due to the presence of iron, which triggers oxidative reactions that eventually result in the formation or in tumor formation. Red meat consumption is strongly associated with the development of breast cancer. Ingestion of red meat increases Helicobacter pylori infections, resulting in enhanced expression of the CAG gene and the secretion of pro-inflammatory cytokines. And you're probably going, okay, I don't know what all that is.
Right.
So that alone right there is the leading cause of gastric cancer. They're looking at, the findings, but I'll go over the findings here in just a moment as well. So there's a strong correlation between the amines and the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons in red meat and the development of pancreatic cancer. So they go through the different cancers, and those cancers that this study goes through is breast cancer. It covers gastric cancer, pancreatic cancer, and colon cancer. those were the main ones that they went through. They did touch on a little bit about esophageal cancers and that they did talk about how poultry has been shown to have a low association with cancer, but additional research is needed. Now I'm throwing that out there because as we go along further in this article, it really starts talking about how in many parts of the world, people prioritize eating meat as a primary food group. Right? So meat provides a significant source of protein and fat, as well as essential vitamins and nutrients like iron, zinc, vitamin A, and vitamin B. Extremely important, and we need those in our bodies to function.
Mhm.
Red
Mhm.
meat being an example given of the red meat that they talked about in here was beef, lamb, and goat. Okay, I eat all of those except for the goat. Not quite into the goat yet. And the processed meats, hot dogs, beef jerky, and sausage, make up the majority of the total meat consumption and have been rising in the United States. Okay, so beef, lamb, goat, and their processed meats being hot dogs, beef jerky, and sausage, making up the primary consumption that is increasing in the United States alone. Consuming processed meats has been linked to a 6% higher risk of breast cancer, mainly in postmenopausal women, an 18% higher risk of colorectal cancer, a 21% higher increase in colon cancer, and a 22% higher risk of rectal cancer. Red and processed meats are considered a hidden risk factor for stomach cancer, according to the World Cancer Research Fund 2012 report on pancreatic cancer. The evidence regarding the contribution of red meat and processed meat to an elevated risk was deemed to be limited due to the contradictory evidence. Okay. Exogenous hormones used in beef cattle may leave behind hormone residues that increase the risk of developing estrogen receptor ER positive tumors and breast cancer. High temperature cooking of red meat can create carcinogenic heterocyclic amines, which may influence the pathophysiology of breast cancer. So heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are major contributors to breast, stomach, pancreatic, and colorectal cancers. The amount of red meat consumed per day and the iron from red meat are thought to be risk factors for developing stomach cancers. All of this to say that in the available literature, there is a wide range of results. And the available literature that they're talking about is when you open up this article, there are a number of articles that were written, studies that were done. It describes the study and their outcome of that study. So in the available literature, there's a wide range of results which can be attributed to the study's diverse inclusion criteria. The quality of the evidence linking red and processed meat to negative health consequences is still uncertain. Concerning breast cancer, there is little evidence linking red meat consumption to the presence of tumor hormone receptors. The associations between red and processed meat consumption and pancreatic cancer risk remain unclear. Studies on particular red meats like beef and pork and their association with colon cancer are also limited. Further research is needed to evaluate the effect of red or processed meat consumption on specific histological subtypes of esophageal cancer. Several studies suggest varied results regarding the associations between red meat and gastric cancer. Huge diversity, nothing conclusive, a lot of inconclusive, but a lot of studies being done.
So how is that like they're lumping it for one, as you're reading this, and like they keep using meat and red meat interchangeably with processed meat, which they're two totally separate things. Like they should be two totally separate studies. Like they shouldn't even be combined together. But then, Deb, as you're reading it, I was reading through with you, and this isn't really interesting. There's a piece in here that says discovered that consuming more bread, rice, red meat, especially barbecued, and deep fried vegetables was associated with increased pancreatic cancer. Okay, well, we need to actually break that down because it's what you're eating with what you're eating and how you're eating it and how it's cooked. So it's not even necessarily probably the red meat to begin with. It's the combination of food and then how it's cooked. So
and how it's cooked, definitely.
Exactly.
Those even need to be separated in a study because it's still misleading.
So the reason we read the study to you to audience for you to see the title of the study, the content of the study, and bottom line, like, the breaking. The study, it says like a meat links to cancer, red meat links to cancer. So in the body, it says processed meat. It does not talk about red meat itself, right? And then the bottom line, there's no correlation. I mean, there's no randomized clinical direct studies on red meat, only red meat, and nothing else in human being, like a diet or lifestyle or any exposure to any other things. If they did the studies, just the red meat for 20 years, giving someone eating red meat, and then down the road that caused cancer. And they did like, epigenetics, like other things, like other factors, they could say yes. If they eliminate all those factors and just keep someone, group of people, not someone, group of people on red meat diet, and people would develop cancer, that's the study we're talking about. That's the study we should pay attention to. But when they're taking epidemiological surveys from group here, group there, and they're combining them without separating red meat itself from the processed food, from combination of different foods, that's not a study. That's just the theories. Those are just the opinions, and that's what the people have to understand the difference in the study. When they said that, oh, there's a PubMed study, you should know what that PubMed study is. And we're bringing this for you to educate yourself. Before jumping and stating that red meat is carcinogenic, you have to know why is it considered to be a carcinogenic? Why? What exactly in the red meat could be carcinogenic to people, especially or who have cancer or people who doesn't have cancer? So in 2015, WHO decided to basically report red meat as group 1 carcinogenic, processed meat as group 1 carcinogenic, and red meat, such as beef, lamb, and pork, was classified as a group A, probably carcinogenic to humans, probably, okay? But those studies are coming from epidemiological surveys, not clinical trials or clinical studies. And that's what the difference people have to understand. So when our clients are asking us if meat is okay to eat, like meat is okay to eat when you have cancer, it's not even okay to eat. It's healthy for you to eat meat. Why? Because if you take meat and you learn about compound of red meat, it's very, very close to human muscle, human body's compound. The protein structure, the building and repair tissues of it's very, very close to humans. And it does provide those amino acids, the protein, level of proteins it does provide for people to hold on to muscle mass. The biggest problem in people who have cancer, that people, if they don't consume animal protein, and I'm not saying people should like eat like chunk of animal protein, but consuming a certain portion every day based on your body weight and your, activity levels. When you don't consume that needed protein, people, especially when they go through chemotherapy, they break that muscle mass. And it's very easy for people to go into cachexia, losing muscle mass. And once people losing muscle mass, they're losing their life. Because the muscle mass holds like adipose tissues that holds nutrients that keeps people alive and fighting. And people lose that. And they cannot build that muscle mass when they're 100% on the plant pace.
You bring up a really good point, Maya. Well, two things really quick, just for what people don't know what an epidemiological study is. That's it's a research method that investigates different patterns, causes of health issues, and possibly death or stress-related events, populations, and different areas like distribution areas. And that's what they do. They look at the information and then they pull the information together. So it really depends on how they're pulling it together and then what they're pulling together, just so, for those that don't know what that study means. But yeah, you just bring up a really good point about how, if you're going through cancer and you're eating only vegetables and stuff, and you can become cachexic, you need that extra fat. And you'll hear even just in conventional methods, saying, "Oh, eat whatever you want as long as you get calories in and
Gain
that
weight,
way gain
right?
weight." But
Right.
really, it's what kind of calories you're eating and what nutrition you're eating in that and whatnot. So, I mean, sorry for my voice, you guys, but there's
Yeah.
that piece of it too.
Yeah, that is the biggest problem when people start losing weight during chemotherapy, and when it stopped working on people, a doctor would say eat as much carb as you can to gain your weight back. But the problem is people are not gaining a proper weight back. They're gaining inflammatory weight, which gives people additional problems because it's not about gaining weight, it's gaining a muscle mass. It's completely different.
Mhm.
So implementing a proper source of protein that's what we need, not like, and trusting this nonsense, basically a myth that red meat is carcinogenic is just
Mhm.
like such a misleading guidance and information. And we see it, like I see it from my clients. We all three of us went through cancer. Marinette went through colon cancer, right?
Yeah.
I had estrogen progesterone positive breast cancer. She had also, and I had endometrial cancer and thyroid cancer. So 3 different forms of cancer. And so the meat played a big role in getting better and surviving cancer. So we cannot ditch red meat when it comes from a proper source, hormone-free, grass-fed, grass-finished source, but you have to know the proper intake. How do you have to take your meat? And speaking of iron, by the way, because they said due to the iron load that causes cancer, let's talk about iron in meat and iron in plants. Iron in plants are iron that our body cannot break down, it cannot process. When we eat iron, when we consume plants into iron, that iron cannot bind to anything and it's not bioavailable. That iron causes oxidative stress. That iron oxidized and can feed cancer. But the iron that comes from red meat, it's heme iron. 30% of red meat, 30% of iron from red meat is heme iron, which is coated with heme protein that protects that iron from oxidation and protects the cell. There's a two difference. So making the statement that iron can oxidize and cause cancer, it's such a false information. So we have to know that too. And then people, when they why am I saying this? Because I see from my clients when they come being on plant-based, they have a low iron, and the doctors have to put them on the iron supplementation, which I'm against iron supplementation because that iron supplementation would cause oxidative stress because it's not a right form of iron. The heme iron is a right form of iron. If I have clients that have a low iron, I never recommend them to take iron. I recommend them to eat red meat and supplement with organ capsules once or twice a week, for example, like, getting a proper source of iron. That's why people never can hold that iron in their body and it causes more damage because it's not bioavailable. That's why they're low on iron. So, do you want to add anything to that?
I'm like my brain is just like rolling with trying to figure out how the high iron piece is tied with it because I know that there's even certain areas, demographic areas. If you're around like certain minerals, you live by them, you're going to have higher iron anyways. So how are those two things being differentiated from each other? Because you know what I'm saying? Like the high iron could be from their environment too.
Yes, it could. Well, that's why doing a test like checking like ferritin levels, iron transport, TIBS, other levels would help to understand if the high level of irons, is it like really high in the bloodstream? Is it active or not bioavailable? So that's like the iron when it gets built up, especially people who are on plant-based, that they might have an iron buildup, but that doesn't mean they're loaded with iron. They're deficient because they still have a low hemoglobin level. It's not bioavailable to their body.
Oh, yes. Okay, now I see what
Yeah.
you're, yep.
It's
Okay.
not bioavailable to their body.
Mhm.
And the iron is important because it supports oxygen transport to the brain, the cognitive function, hemoglobin levels, everything is very important. Have you paid
Yeah.
attention, like people, when they come with like a low iron, they also have low hemoglobin levels?
Yeah.
Yeah, correlation between those two, because
Mhm.
they never, they don't, they're not bioavailable to people.
Mhm.
That's why. But you won't have an iron buildup from animal red meat.
So then that's piece of the study is also not,
That's not
that's
accurate. That's not
okay.
accurate. No, I wouldn't say it's accurate.
Huh.
Based on my research, I don't think so. It's accurate.
Yeah.
So, but then again, this is this is where people have to do their own research. I mean, it's like a stop listening. Listen, take the information, go do your research. And if you don't know, contact people, ask them questions before you completely, totally, avoid and block yourself from consuming most important nutrients of your body. If you cannot gain muscle mass, you have to know why you're not gaining muscle mass. If you cannot, there should be a reason behind it. Something is not
Mhm.
breaking down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So it's really
Yeah.
like taking those pieces and putting them together. Like really what isn't still working. If you're still struggling, there's still something off, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's where you're kind of still trying to think through that piece of it is like you're saying with the, somebody who's plant-based, the iron might be low. We were talking about too the B vitamins, that's a whole nother issue. So they might be replacing with B vitamins too. So if you're taking too many of those things, they can actually cause harm
Yeah.
and not be beneficial, especially if you're not eating it in a food form.
I really would like for people to think logically.
Mhm.
So why would you want to stop eating something that provides you with B complex, heme iron, creatinine, like a type of amino acid that comes from protein, animal protein, carnosine, taurine, choline, saturated fat, whatever, zinc, heme iron. Why would you want to stop eating them? Those sources, which is bioavailable, your body knows how to break it down. Your liver makes enzymes to break them down,
Mhm.
but you're going to go and take supplements for it because you're not getting those things from the plants.
Makes
So
me
I
wonder,
want
doesn't it?
people, I want people to think logically. Why would you want to avoid something that has everything what your body needs? And then because you're going to get depleted on those nutrients, you got to go and take the supplements on them. Does it make any sense?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
especially if you can get a food form of it when then you're like you're saying, it's more bioavailable. So it wouldn't make sense to, and then I'm sitting here thinking too, on top of that with the supplements, you don't know what else is added to them. I
Mhm.
mean, like you have to really do your research to be able to find ones that are non-toxic and they're safe and they've been actually verified third-party testing without having um, any, because there's sometimes third-party testing that can be an issue too. So I mean, it's thinking through those things. Okay, so maybe if you're wanting to use plants, use it as like a medicine, like we talk very frequently.
Mhm.
Be able to use it as a medicine, maybe not like the full on. I mean, I kind of think about it this way too. We talk about this a lot, but just our biology, just our makeup, and then we think of our ancestors. We all ate a certain way. Human beings ate a certain way for millennia,
Yeah.
and so we've
Right.
gotten so detached from that piece of it, and now we're trying to say, okay, what's the best way for us to eat? Well, if you go and you do, there are studies about this too, about tribes that are in Africa that are isolated from the rest of the world. They don't tend to have cancer, and I mean, it's very rare that it occurs. And then there are also the fact of the way that they eat. It's mostly animal based, and we don't have the added junk into it. There's no supplementation. There's, they eat, fruits and vegetables based on roots based off of like seasonal, so it's not a constant consumption. So it's kind of like
Right.
we talked about before normally too, is is being smart about, and thinking about what are we putting into our bodies on a consistent basis. Is it going to feed me? Is it going to fuel me? Or is it going to cause me more harm?
Right.
Yeah, and so I kind of think about that when we were discussing like even like vegetables and whatnot. I mean, it would almost be like that would be a moderation thing too, if you think about it, like um
Right.
the amount that you eat. I guess that's the way I think about it myself. But
Amount, combination. A lot of people don't think, like, when those studies comes out, they make the statement red meat, class 1 action carcinogenic, right? But was that red meat were eaten on its own only? Did they do the studies on group of people who ate red meat, as I mentioned, for years in a row, and they had cancer?
mhm,
Or what kind of red meat they were consuming? We spoke about it. And the other thing is, what else did they eat with that red meat? If they had vegetables or fruit with that meat, or a wine or a beer or whatever, a piece of cake, that contain carbs converts into the glucose molecules binds to protein molecules and the fat molecules and completely change the chemical compounds and destroys it, glycates, and causes the problem. So none of those were taken into the consideration. Only thing that was taken is just red meat. Why? Like, I did so much research on red meat that I could not find a link that red meat truly causes cancer, and it could be class 1 cancerogenic. I mean, I spent months of doing research on that, and I couldn't find anything, and it just blows my mind how misleading the information is out there.
mhm,
All I see from myself and so many people and my clients that improving their health
mhm.
instead of making worse or bouncing back and causing cancer, So an idea of so another idea of being a plant-based when it comes to cancer, where did that idea came from? No one knows. We don't even know. There's no science
Would it
and
have maybe
study.
like rooted maybe like Gerson therapy is where that's where my mind always goes.
Well, Gerson therapy started at Keller Williams. They started at the plant-based, but the Keller Williams actually were consuming some, I believe so,
Oh,
animals, or Gerson therapy. Oh, Gerson therapy does include liver.
oh.
Yeah,
Well, isn't that
liver or liver
interesting
capsule.
though?
Yes, the liver for the B complex and other things, and iron source. Even though it does states about juicing a lot, but it does still contain some
So
sources.
of
Yeah,
that meat, of animal
of the red.
protein, which I mean,
Right,
that brings up a whole nother discussion we could even have on just organ meats and how beneficial they are for people and how
right,
we've, lost that piece in our diet. But yeah,
right,
like that just makes complete sense. I mean, so then there's still a piece of it in even the Gerson therapy. I didn't know that
right.
piece. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
I believe so. Yeah, I think years ago when I was reading, I've done Gerson therapy. That's what I'm saying. I've
Mm,
done it, and it's I've done vegan, I've done vegetarian, I've done others. So I never felt better until I start eating meat. It
mhm.
just a problem after a problem after a problem after a problem, and uh, I always had low hemoglobin levels up until I started eating meat. So this is we're talking from the personal experience, and I had a lot of clients that can stand up behind it.
Mhm.
So it's the myth is the red meat rottens in your stomach. It just makes me laugh sometimes. It's like the red meat content is basically a protein, uh, the fat, and minerals, and some fiber, little fiber. So red meat does contain like some fiber, very little. So what part of protein can rotten in the stomach? It just breaks down, into the amino acid. The fat breaks down into the fatty acids, and the
Mhm.
minerals just breaks down and they methylate and they get absorbed through the small intestine into the bloodstream. So what part of red meat could be carcinogenic? 60% is water, similar to our bodies, like, muscle, 20% protein, 20 to 23%, and 9% to 13%, depends on the part, fat. And that fat is broken down into the saturated fat, monosaturated fat, and polysaturated fat on certain percentage, right?
Mhm.
So which part of those things could rotten in the body? They just properly and beautifully broken down into the amino acids, fatty acids, and nutrients. That's it. And the water.
Yeah, so then
So
what could actually ferment into that was the meat. So here's a question then. Like if you're eating vegetables with the meat, could that be
oh,
possibly where they're saying fermentation happens, but the fermentation is actually possibly vegetables?
the vegetables do ferment. Not vegetables, I mean the fiber ferments in the body.
Fiber does. Okay.
Yeah, fiber does ferment in the body.
Mhm.
So and that's another part. The fiber ferment and actual rottens. This is the perfect things to say about fiber. Fiber could rotten in your digestive system. That's where the SIBO comes into the picture. Like a lot of people that have SIBO or IBS, IBD, they cannot tolerate fiber.
Yeah, I'm one of those actually.
You're one of those. There you go. Yeah. So no, that's true. Like my son is one of them too.
Yeah.
And my daughter is all the same way. They would tell me, Mom, I cannot eat fiber.
Yeah,
It
yours.
hurts my stomach. I cannot do it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're pretty, I love your story, the story of this, you guys, Maya. Like, this is just so awesome because
Yeah.
Maya was very passionate about her plant-based and
Oh
she was
gosh.
having, if it's okay, like some family were having issues with their health. And so, of
Yeah.
course, she went into her research mode and figured out what she could do to help them. And this is what she ended up finding. And so,
Mhm.
it's not just something that's on a whim, oh, we heard this or that. There's been a lot of research that has been done on both sides of things to be able to come to this conclusion.
Right.
And then in your personal life, you were able to see like amazing transformations, right?
Right.
You want to share a little
Amazing.
bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, you have to sometimes listen instead of sticking to what you heard. Because throughout nutrition school, throughout like learning about, I mean, the last time I was diagnosed with cancer, 2015, and since then I've been doing a lot of research and nutritional study. And of course, everywhere it says like to maintain healthy body, you need fat, fiber, protein, right? This
Mhm.
is the basic things that they keep telling us to do. So, okay, you stick with it. So in all natural wellness and holistic health, that's the things they're talking about: fat, fiber, protein.
Mhm.
So in my household, I have 3, 4 juicers, 3, 4 blenders. I mean, we expensive juicers, not just the juicers. So I used to be a juice queen. I would juice like 3, 4, 5 cups a day. And on the top of it, I would make my kids to drink too. But they would come to me, they said, Mom, I don't know what you put in the juice. If my stomach hurts, I cannot. I'm like, there's nothing in there, just the carrots. Why would your stomach hurt from carrot juice? I don't know, but my stomach hurt. So you kind of, it never would occur to me that it might be because of the plants. Like, I mean, like you need the nutrients. I'm giving you the nutrients. I wouldn't even hear them. Then when they would complain that my stomach hurt. So I
Yeah.
would make a smoothie, they would drink it, my stomach hurts. I cannot, Mom. It made me bloated. It made me gassy. My stomach hurt. So, and I have to like, I had a diarrhea or blood, whatever. So, and I wouldn't hear them. I don't hear them because in my mind, I'm giving them, I'm a good mom. I'm giving them a nutrition.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And then it came to the point when it went, out of control. My son for a decade struggled with IBS and severe form of IBS when he lost like 70, 80 pounds, something like that. And, had like bloody stool and like, very, very scary condition. And we went to see clinical nutritionist and he goes, eliminate the fiber. I'm like, what do you mean eliminate the fiber? Fiber, we need fiber. It's good for digestive system. He goes, no, eliminate the fiber. So we were desperate at the time. Okay, So and I've done a lot of research, but my research was all linking, take a fiber, I mean, you've been in that spot too on that, right? So take a fiber. So, okay, and when he tells me eliminate the fiber, that blows my mind. Go on a carnivore diet. Stop eating plants, eat for my son to eat animal product. And then suddenly, every single day, he's getting better. And in 4 weeks, he reversed everything. And that's where my, curiosity took over. And past couple of years, I've been doing a lot of research. 3-4 years, I've been doing a lot of research on that part. And by eliminating fiber, they improve their condition a lot. Because fiber goes through fermentation process. Fiber is cellulose. Insoluble fiber is cellulose, and we don't make an enzyme that's called cellulite to break down fiber. Human body does not make that enzyme. Animals do. They do break down the fiber. They make that enzyme. We don't. And that causes a lot of problem to digestive system. That makes that unneeded bacteria to grow. When we talk about, we need, microbiome diversity. Where is that theory coming from? Do we really need microbiome diversity? We need to know. I looked it up and I'm like, where is that thing is coming from? Why do we don't even know. The studies, like scientists still doesn't know what's a microbiome diversity and what are those microbiomes are and what exactly do we need. But we keep saying that we need those microbiome diversities.
But it's different for everybody, isn't it? Like certain
It's
people
different for
need different
everybody.
ones, and
Yes.
certain people need different microbes to be able to help support
Right.
their systems a little bit different. So basically, you really shouldn't be taking a general all-around probiotic. Probably not the
No.
greatest idea.
No.
So it
No.
would probably be better to focus on, well, again, whole foods.
Whole foods, yeah.
Whole foods.
If you're eating, we're not saying people should stop eating fiber or plants. If you're eating plants, ferment them, or cook them, break down that cellulose to be able to digest it better, to break it down so it won't affect the mucosal lining of your digestive system. And it won't make to grow nasty bacteria like yeast or candida or whatever, because it's ferments. And fermentation process, we know it goes through the stages, alcohol, aldehyde and other things, and then lactate, and then on the end product, we're getting a little bit small chain fatty acid, butyrate, like very small percentage. It doesn't do to our digestive system anything.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, we need to have that small chain fatty acid in the
Yes.
large intestine, because that's where the good bacteria grows.
And where do you get butyrate from again, Maya?
Butter. The ghee
Right.
has a high source of butyrate.
Right.
And it's like just directly available to you. You don't have to, but the body should not go through the process of fermentation to get that little source of small chain fatty acid. You get it from butter, you get it like a source right there without going through the trouble of fermenting, being bloated, being gassy, having diarrhea, having pain. You don't get through those stages. You're just having those butyrates.
Well, and if you think about it then too, then the body is using less energy and you're conserving more, especially if you're going through cancer, then you're conserving more energy and able to use it in a different way that's going to be more beneficial for you. Instead of trying to break something down that could be in a different, broken down, well, not broken down, actually just available in a different way. So your body's not having to work so hard.
Right. Yeah. I actually wrote something here and I want to talk about it. Deb, do you want to add anything, or I'm the only one who's talking today?
I'm just laughing. Nope, I am just listening. Keep going.
Yeah.
Well, it's like fascinating listening to you though, Maya, because like so much of this, like we learn over and over again each time we hear it from you, since this is something that that's not really talked about very often, and we're all learning. So I mean, it's pretty fascinating listening to you when you're talking.
Thanks. Well, you yourself, like with the colon cancer and colon surgeries, like, you were told by your doctor to consume fiber. You need that fiber. And then you were having so much problems, right?
Tons of problems.
Tons of problems. And then
So
when you
many
stop,
issues still.
Yeah, you wanna talk about it? You can talk about it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so I'm probably that very person that these studies are targeting. So I had a very aggressive form of colon cancer in 2015 is when I was diagnosed. And it was very, very, very quick. Normally tumors grow, they're slower growing and they usually can take up to 10 years before you really start to actually see the tumor itself. This developed in a couple of months. So I had no cancer to having cancer metastatically. So I did some research and whatnot, but I never really came across the fact of like going whole plant-based when I was addressing cancer. Plus, like I couldn't mentally get to that spot anyways. I still wanted my meat. I had enough changes. Um, but I implemented more vegetables. I really got rid of like the processed foods because I was eating that sad American diet, you know, the standard American diet. And so I got away from those and started changing the way that I ate, but I was still having problems. And even after becoming a holistic cancer coach, I was like, while I changed it even more, I'm still having issues. Like, why is this still happening? So, like before, I was having still tons of digestive upset, bloating, nausea, vomiting. I was actually even on a regimen of 4 different medications, antiemetic medications to be able to keep my nausea under control 24/7. And I've been doing that for years, very long time. And so I kept having these problems. I was having insulin resistance issues, even when I was eating plant-based, which made no sense to me. Like I couldn't understand why that was like still a thing and why it was an issue. My A1C was coming down, but I was still having blood sugar spikes and I wasn't juicing a lot. I wasn't like eating over excessive consumption of vegetables. It was a very basic plant-based diet and nothing, you know, out of the ordinary, but I was still having again the fatigue, the weight gain, even like the weight was just an issue. My hormones were even still a hot mess. Um, they were improving, but they were still not great. And I felt still like a lot of brain fog and I just did not feel very good. And then I would still have blood test results that would come back questionable. So, I mean, like not precancerous, but they're not looking in the right direction at certain times. And I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out why. So then I was just blessed to run into Maya and Beat Cancer and Deb and their way of thinking and was able to shed some light on that. And so I had stopped eating mostly plants starting in March when we got back from a conference and I went to carnivore. I completely cut everything out. Um, because I wanted to actually see if this was going to work. I was miserable. It was miserable. I mean, when your life, and I'm not afraid to share this because it's my life, is revolved around a bathroom, it's not great. That's not truly living, right?
Right.
So you find whatever way you can to be able to help alleviate those symptoms and how you're feeling. And so Maya was able to shed some light on it. At first, I was like questioning, I'm like, there's no way. Like, you got to have some vegetables and stuff in her diet, whatever. But the more I was talking to her and she was explaining the information, I'm like, oh my gosh, no. So it was like my mind was open and it wasn't like you didn't even hardly you gave me things, but you were like insistent on doing I needed to do my research, Maya. Maya gave me some
Yeah.
homework, and so I had to do that. But since then, my liver enzymes are coming back down. The alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency is actually related to that. So I was not getting enough protein and not complete protein. So being able to eat animal-based was actually what was beneficial for me. And then I went and saw my GI specialist and she was a newer one that I was seeing, and she was like, "Yeah, no, you really shouldn't be eating that much fiber." So this whole time I had been taking extra fiber that I was instructed to be doing, and actually it was probably hurting me more than it was helping me. And so she said, "Yeah, nope, do which is called the food map diet, the low fiber diet." But I still just continue to stay with carnivore, and I'm more towards like a heavier, like a stricter keto now. But I have not had the issues. I can go days without taking anything for nausea. I can
Yeah.
go days without having to run and get sick or like any of those things. Like most of that is gone. I don't have the bloating issues. I was finally able to start losing weight again because my hormones started balancing out. There's still some piece of that, but that's a whole nother story. But even the polyp issue had improved. So it's pretty impressive. But just not feeling miserable every single day is wonderful. And then noticing that my blood markers are online, like that's even better. But I
Right.
had noticed even before I was still starving. So I was binge eating at times. And that was one thing that was really hard. I mean, I was still hungry. Come to find out it was probably because of SIBO that I was still having to struggle with. All this time, those last 10 years, I had not had anybody fully be able to address the SIBO. And this is the first time ever that it's been able to be completely gone. And I don't have issues with it any longer, which is just amazing. It's phenomenal.
Right.
But yeah, and then having the MTHFR gene mutation, you know, eating a complete protein is going to be your best bet, and being able to eat it from an animal protein source is even better because your body is going to get those methylated nutrients that they're already needing. So you don't have to like supplement it with it. You don't have to like add anything else. I should say I do take an organ supplement because it's like I cannot get my brain to match up with putting all the organ meat in my mouth. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's still like that part of me that's just like I'm eating beef liver, like I'm eating liver.
Yeah.
So I do use
No
it.
matter how you fix it.
Well, it takes
No.
some time for people. I mean, your condition didn't build over like a month or 2 months or 3 months, right? You
Yeah,
had it for such a long time. Same thing is reversing a condition. It takes a while. So,
exactly. Well,
right.
and that was like the other thing too that you were you know, that you were talking to me about previously was reversing things. My
Hmm.
neuropathy, I have to share this with you guys because one of the biggest things that we changed was the type of CBD product I had been using, which was a huge plus. But the other thing was also the diet piece. If you look at neuropathy and you look at diet and you see the connection, it's like your mind just opens. The more carbohydrates you eat, the more sugar you eat, the worse your neuropathy is going to be. And
Hmm.
so I no longer take any medications for neuropathy. And I
Nice.
noticeably contribute it to those two things, and diet has got to be probably the biggest thing. Especially
How many meds were you taking for neuropathy?
3, including
Three.
a cream.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you stopped them all, right?
I stopped them all. Yeah. So, and the
Yeah.
thing is too, I like again, we were saying at the when I was first sharing my story, my case is who these studies are directed at. But I didn't really ever stop eating red meat. I would cut back. I cut back on how I cooked it. I stopped, you know, charbroiling. I love some crispy bacon. Okay. I love some crispy steak and I loved a crispy edge on my hamburgers, but I stopped cooking them that way. So, you know, a lot of that I think is in combination with how is it prepared? What kinds of and what are you selecting to eat? I was also very fortunate to you know, be in an area where grass-fed, grass-finished beef is a big deal. That's actually what you find most places. So I had been eating that over the last 10 years too, but I had not ever completely cut it out. And even when I saw my oncologist, they were like, well, you know, it's whatever you're doing, keep doing it because they had not seen anybody with my case in 30 years come out of it
Right.
after 5 years. So he said,
Yeah.
nope, keep doing whatever you're doing. Of course, they said, you know, don't eat the processed meats. Lunch meats are bad. Smoked meats are, you know, eat them on a very regular, you know, minimal basis. And of course, eat grilled foods on a minimal basis, but they didn't ever really say like completely cut out red meat or anything. So, um, yeah, that piece was just interesting. But
Right.
it's pretty cool to actually see how different you can feel when you just make those changes. And
Right.
you really
Right.
don't want the other stuff afterwards.
No, no.
Mm-mm.
A lot of people are pushing for, they're talking, when people are plant-based, they have to eat a lot of carbohydrate to fill themselves up because it's impossible to fill yourself up if you're not getting a proper nutrition intake because your body is going to be always hungry. It's not having enough needed nutrients. When the cell depleted in nutrients, it would send a signal to a brain and brain sends a signal to the stomach and stomach gives you that hunger feeling. That's why people, when they consume carbohydrate, they become hungry very fast. So
Mhm.
with the protein, like I eat, for example, once a day, twice as the snacks that I could eat because I'm not hungry ever, you know. for
Mhm.
example. And I just like I hear for our listeners that I just broke down lectins, like lectins in grains, lectin in lectins in legumes and even nuts and seeds. When lectins are carbohydrate binding proteins. So
Mhm.
they bind to carbohydrate. They found in many plants, as I mentioned, right?
Mhm.
So they bind to cell membrane, particularly to the lining of the gut and to immune cells.
Mhm.
This is a lectin. So therefore, they disrupt the gut barrier. So they cause like a leaky gut.
Leaky gut.
Right. And Dr.
Mhm.
Godry, by the way, he wrote a book on that,
Mhm.
and then by binding to intestinal lining cells, trigger inflammation by activating immune response, interfere with digestion by binding to digestive enzymes or nutrients transporters. So they get bind to nutrient transporters.
Mhm.
So every molecule, every vitamin and mineral, it needs transporter. Transporter means like it would take that nutrients and deliver it to the cell. It would cross that barrier, gut lining barrier, to the villi and deliver it to the cells, right?
Mhm.
So those called transporters, like let's say B12, cannot go into the cell on its own. It needs a transporter. So lectin bind to those transporters, depleting those nutrients to enter the bloodstream. So we become nutritionally depleted, like by
Wow.
the stimulates autoimmunity through the molecular mimicry or chronic immune activation.
So you're
This
gonna have
is
chronic.
lectin only. This is
Yeah.
only lectins, and we're not talking about oxalates, cyanides. I mean, you name it. Cyanide, especially in the nightshades. Cyanide can shut down mitochondria in the cell. Like certain level of cyanide can shut down mitochondria in the cell and cause like a immediate death.
So
And
I mean, like it's like chronic, it's chronic mild inflammation. So people that are struggling with these chronic mild inflammatory issues could actually be just suffering from what they're eating.
right, yes, people have to pay attention to
Oh.
what they're eating. Might interfere with low energy,
Mhm.
nutrition deficiencies, combination of the food also. That's
Mhm.
why those studies, when they did those research and studies, they don't never studied the combination of the food they did or any, they just did epidemiological survey. And based on that, they put this nonsense out there and misleading people. And people are afraid. Oh, but red meat causes cancer. Oh, but red meat rottens in your stomach.
Mhm.
Okay, where did you get that from? I want to see those studies.
I just heard
Don't
it.
listen to people. Yeah, don't listen to people. Do your homework,
Well, I
So
mean, that was going to bring up too, just really quick. Like we were talking too about the combinations of foods. So like you really shouldn't be eating potatoes with meat. You really shouldn't be eating rice with meats.
right.
What else is there that you really shouldn't be eating in combination with it because it can actually cause carcinogenic issues to arise when you're eating them together. Is that correct?
I would say, yeah, and yes and no. Like, I would say, like, when you eat meat that
Mm-hmm.
is complete with nutrients and you
Mm-hmm.
want them to be bioavailable, eat meat on its own. If you want to eat vegetables, eat them separately,
Mm.
right? This is what I
Yeah.
would say.
So meat
Eat
and
your
potatoes.
Another
vegetables
thing,
and because the body breaks them down very fast, the vegetables. And of course, fermented or cooked, it's easier to break it down. So, and the other thing that I want to say, like if you charcoal your vegetables, they're going to become carcinogenic,
Mm-hmm.
right? You eating raw vegetables, that affect your digestive system more than cooked vegetables. When you cook your vegetables, you lose nutrients.
Nutrients.
So it's like it's like a change. Same thing in the meat though. When you cook your meat, you can lose, but you still get your protein and other things.
Mm-hmm.
So combination of food matters, of course. You don't want to eat carbohydrate together with protein and fat. You gotta isolate them. Either eat your carbohydrates and then sometime after eat your protein, and fat,
Okay,
or vice versa. You don't want to combine them.
together.
Yeah,
Is that-
the best way to do it is like one day eating carbs, the next day eating like protein and fat, for example. Probably. I don't know. Again, it's not the best way. I'm just assuming that because you don't want to combine them. If you eat your carbs, carbohydrate breaks down in the body very fast. Why? Because body has to, it's so toxic. Carbs are so toxic. Glucose is so toxic. Body's trying to process it as fast as it can to bring the toxicity level down. That's
Mm,
why we break down fat, like, carbs really fast. Protein, we need it. It takes some time. And people would say, oh, protein breaks for so long, our body doesn't know how to break it. No, our body knows. That's why we have enzymes, lipase. That's why we have other enzymes to break down protein and
break them
fat,
down. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We make those like enzymes in our
Yeah.
body.
Were you
So,
gonna add something, Deb? Were you gonna add something to that?
I was going to add something to that. In addition with, we're talking about eating it separately, but it's also cooking your
Oh,
meats and your
yeah.
vegetables and your potatoes and that type of thing together is also can pose an issue as well
yeah,
because you're mixing everything and that can also cause an effect. So it's a science. It truly is a science. And who would
Oh my
have thought
God.
that, and I love my crock pot, but I do cook differently now with my crock pot.
Oh,
I cook a
wow.
lot of things separately. I do I do it all separately now rather than throwing it all together. It does make a difference.
Yeah.
There are certain enzyme and chemical reactions that happen with it when you do that.
When you are mixing the foods together. See, this is news to me. I knew about like not eating them together. This is why you guys are nutritionists. I'm just a nurse. You guys are you guys have that piece of it, but like I had no idea. So like the chemical, I mean that makes sense though. The chemical reactions that will happen with the different foods can actually set things off and then it creates a different chemical structure of what you're going to be consuming. Is that right?
Yeah,
yeah,
my son, for example, likes shrimp scampi. Well, I'm allergic to shellfish, so but I make it for him. But I realize I'm like, oh, there'll be no problem. No problem. I'm just, I'll stay away, that kind of thing. Not so much when you add garlic to shrimp. Big chemical reaction, butter, garlic, shrimp. And for me, I just would get so stuffy and I'm like, what in the world? It's the addition of garlic to that.
yeah,
So it just it doesn't work for me. So I have to be very careful when I cook that. If I cook
Wow.
it separate, it's different. And now I haven't tried it. It's been a number of years, but I haven't tried actually just eating a regular, shrimp, piece of shrimp or something. So I don't know because what good is that if you're not dipping it in some good old butter garlic?
right.
I know.
That's what I
That's
was
great.
thinking. I'm like, don't you want to throw the Old Bay on there too instead of
Yeah.
the butter and garlic?
Yeah,
But
I don't
yeah,
know.
just little things to
right,
know and remember.
Yeah, I had no, that's news. That's like a good piece of it is cooking things separately then too. And then
right.
not eating them together. There is something too, isn't there, that you should wait at least like 2 to 3 hours before eating like a carb with a meat or a fat, like with a protein or a fat.
Yeah, if people are, I would say like people when if they choose to consume some sort of carbohydrate, the
Hmm.
better would be to eat that separately from fat and protein,
Hmm.
if they choose to do so. But and they break down faster. Protein would take some time
Yeah.
to break down. It's
So
a
I mean, it
process.
does make sense then, like, people that are doing more keto, like eating the protein and the fat it's a healthy combo. And then if
Hmm.
they do have, say a vegetable, it's fermented already, it's already broken down. So then
Hmm.
your body's not having to do that extra stuff, and then you don't have the fermentaceous process going on in your body. So it's already happened.
Right. But people
Well,
with IBS, IBD, or SIBO or Crohn's disease,
mhm,
they would they would have a hard time eating fermented vegetables.
yeah. Until you can allow the gut
Yeah,
to heal enough, right?
right. They're also like people who don't have a gallbladder.
Oh yeah,
That's
that's a
another
whole other issue.
that's another whole story, another story in there. Yeah.
We
So
could do a
Another
whole
story.
that's
We
Another
can do
another
a
story.
whole
We
one
can
on the
talk, yeah.
gallbladder.
We can do that next time, probably talking about gallbladder.
We actually
That's
really
for sure.
should. We really
Yeah.
should, because if you think about it, I know we're past the hour, but if you
Yeah.
think about it, gallbladders are such they're taken out all the time. It's like a
Mhm.
common thing, but how many people know of the things that they need to do to be able to help prevent disease and illness down the road by not
Right.
having when they're not having their gallbladder anymore? So yeah, we should
Right.
talk about that next
Yeah.
time.
Let's
So you're
talk
missing
about
your
it next
gallbladder.
time. Yes.
That's a
Oh,
great topic.
that's a great topic. Let's do that. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
do, yeah. It's a great topic to talk, and people should know about it. You know, because
Absolutely.
people go and remove it, they have this assumption that they don't need a gallbladder. It's okay to remove it. So, but
Mhm.
let's talk about it. That's a good topic to talk about.
It really is, because no matter what you're eating, I mean, this is a piece that you probably really need to address until
Right.
you don't know if you don't know. But yeah, thank you
That's
guys for the
true.
topic tonight. I mean, it was just
Thank you.
that was so good. I was just intrigued by listening to you, Maya, by not sorry for not asking as many questions. I was just listening to you and Deb, and then like reading through those studies. It's just fascinating, and it gets your mind thinking. So
Yes,
good stuff.
thinking. And that's exactly what we're missing. We're missing thinking. We're just blindly trusting,
Mhm.
what we hear, what we read, what we listen. Well, we have to think. That's
Yes.
like a best thing. Yeah. So thank you for joining us today. It was a great conversation today.
Yes, and we'll
Yeah.
see you. Well, actually, yeah,
In
we'll see
two
you on a
weeks.
Tuesday in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. Yes. And thank you for participating today.
Yes. All right. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, everyone.